How dare this fool? He makes it sound like killing dragons is like killing a god or something. I gotta set him straight. Hey, I saw your YouTube video. I know what you said about dragons. Dragons isn't that hard to kill.
What the heck? Why is there an action figure criticizing my YouTube channel? Is this some sort of prank? Daniel, freaking... How did you even get my mailing address? Is this a part of some Small Soldiers reboot or something? Who sent you? Was it the Master of Deals? Josiah? It was Orlando, wasn't it?
No. I am Heracles, son of Zeus. I watched your YouTube video, and I know what you said. Don't you know that people have killed dragons throughout all history?
Listen, last week I only gave one side of the story. It's a continuing thing. Just put your sword away, take a seat, get some hot cocoa. It'll be fine, I promise.
Is this the start of a new series?
A new series?
I mean, yeah, it'd be great. We could talk about everything. We could talk about hero stories, like all the stuff that I did. You know I killed a Hydra, right?
I mean, I guess this is how things work, right? We're on the internet and talking to an action figure. Okay. One thing, though. No Disney songs. I can't afford a copy strike.
And that's how we started Heroic Hubris, featuring me, Heracles, son of Zeus.
The epic of dreams.
Can a man stand against a nuclear bomb? What if this bomb were a living creature with an imperious will and immortal anger? What sort of man could fight against this monster and live to tell the tale? By what means can mere mortals attempt to overcome dragons? Sup, nerds? I am Drew Cochran, and these are my associates, Aroxthenes and Heracles, son of Zeus.
Hey, put me down. This isn't right. I'm a freaking demigod, you son of a bitch.
Welcome to Heroic Hubris, where we survey legends of mythological heroes of different RPG classes and glean wisdom from them for our own games. Last week, we talked about dragons and stuff, and we learned that they were pretty brutal. This week, we're going to continue that discussion and learn about how different people from history and mythology killed them dragons and lived to tell the tale. We will take several cues from mythology and anthropology and all the other ologies as they come up. Let us begin! So today I'm going to show you two different kinds of ways that people tried to kill dragons. And the first kind I'm going to show you was kind of successful a little bit, and then the second kind I'm going to show you was a lot better. And if you are playing as a player inside of a role-playing game, and you want to have these elements of weight and drama into your games, well, today's your day, my friend.
Hey! How'd I get this fez?
Dang, I didn't even notice it. Heracles, was this you?
I don't know what the heck you're talking about. I just came here to watch some YouTube and make sure that we made some good content.
You know, Zeus was probably one of the biggest liars in, history, right?
What, you saying I'm like my dad?
Listen, Herc, I'm just saying that even as much as I try to not be like my dad sometimes, it's kind of inevitable.
So, you're gonna take this off of me or what? I look like an Amish with this thing.
Yeah, fine. You know the funny part about this is that I actually got this at a launch sale from a freaking dragon lamp because I'm an edgelord. Anyways, where were we? Inefficient examples. Human hubris sans heroicism. I'm just gonna read you the anecdotes. We got two of them. One from the lands of India, and second from Rome, I think. First, we will learn from the history of four-footed beasts, written by Edward Topsell in the 1600s or some junk. This is what he says. It's a natural history bestiary thing about a lot of stuff, and he's got dragons in here. There's actually a lot of cool stuff about dragons. If you got some time to spend reading about dragons, this is a good one. History of four-footed beasts. Let's go! We have said already that when they upon elephants, they are taken and killed of men. Now the manner how the Indians killed mountain dragons is thus. They take a garment of scarlet and picture upon it a charm in golden letters. This they lay upon the mouth of the dragon's den, for with the red odor and the gold, the eyes of the dragon are overcome, and he falleth asleep. The Indians in the mean fiefon, watching, and muttering secretly words of incantation. When they perceive he is fast asleep, suddenly they strike off his neck with an axe, and so take out the balls of his eyes, wherein are lodged those rare and precious stones which contain in them virtues unutterable, as hath been evidently proved by one of them, that was included in the ring of Gyges. Many times it falleth out, that the dragon draweth the Indian both with his axe and instruments into his den, and there devoureth him, in the rage whereof he beateth the mountain that it shaketh. Yeah, so he's saying here that the Indian dragon hunters would go in front of the cave or wherever where the dragons would sleep, that they would put a carpet in front of them with red and gold letters, try to cast a sleep spell on him, and then when he's asleep, you walk into the cave, and then you cut his head off with an axe. And then you could take his eyeballs, which were, treasury. That is pretty cool, though, if you think about it from, like, an RPG standpoint. Like, it wasn't effective, but there's a precedent for, like, gishes, I just love me some gishes, you know what I'm saying? Second anecdote. Titus Livius Patavinus, a Roman historian. According to Livius, an African reptile attacked the army of General Regulus. And this is the quote. After many soldiers had been seized in its mouth, and many more crushed by the folds of its tail, its hide being too thick for javelins and darts, the dragon was at last attacked by military engines and crushed by repeated arrows from heavy stones. In the sum of my research, I have found a lot of the times, and even going back to the Job passage from last time, we find that the Leviathan has like double coats of armor on his scales. And there's a big precedent for people to try and skewer the dragon with harpoons and swords and arrows and heavy ballistas and all that some such, right? But here we figure out a little nugget for all you dragon hunters out there and RPG designers. You want to take from, anthropological and mythological cues, make it so that your dragons are perhaps impervious to non-magical piercing and slashing weapons, but the bludgeoning weapons deal a little more damage. Notice the key theme here. You may remember it from last week's video. After many soldiers had been seized in its mouth, and many more crushed by the folds of its tail, its hide being too thick for javelins and darts, the dragon was at last attacked by military engines and crushed by repeated blows from heavy stones. They got their ish rocked. Dragons are still dragons. Even though we're revealing the secrets and giving you the keys of the kingdom this week on how to kill dragons, they're still very easily able to kill you, a human. And I say this again this week, just like last week, not to be like, hey, you should kill your players, but to illustrate the gravity of what dealing with a true dragon is like. The general overcame because he was not at the front lines. He commanded the military engines to go forth, and the catapults killed the dragon. But if the dragon saw and wasn't held up by the knights that he was plowing around with his tail and stuff, that there was trebuchets ahead, and he would have went and burned the trebuchets or smashed the trebuchets if he didn't have fire breathing. Alright, we get it. You think dragons are super badass and stuff. But let's get on with those stories about the heroes, right? That's what this one's about, heroes. Okay, today we will look at the story of a wizard, a knight, and a king, who each slayed a dragon in their own way. For our wizard, we have the prophet Daniel of the Bible, an archetype of wisdom and cunning. Bell and the dragon. I'm not going to read this whole myth for you, but the prophet Daniel killed a dragon by feeding it. So they would feed the dragon, every month because, dragons, the king had a dragon. So this was a smaller dragon, not Leviathan sized, right? Not Order Class 5 for those who are in the cult, but perhaps Order Class 3. Monthly tribute to the dragon. Daniel was essentially a wizard for the court of King Cyrus. Daniel quells this dragon not by, trying to stab it or whatever, but instead by feeding it, by appealing to its pride, by being subservient to it. He feeds him a ball of pitch. And because dragons breathe fire, when the dragon eats the ball of pitch, it literally explodes. Inside of this one story, we have not one but two major tropes of modern day fantasy at work. One, the fireball spell, and I have searched far and wide in search of a mythological precedent for a real freaking fireball spell because it's one of the most cheesiest things in modern fantasy, and I despise it. And of course it's found in the Bible of all places, right? But we also have a precedent where man beats dragon by using his monkey brain. Because he did not try to best the dragon in a show of force, he left that encounter with his life. A rare feat indeed. Next, we will learn of the Knight Red Cross from Edmund Spenser's The Fairy Queen. I have this illustrated version, and it's pretty keen, and I'm going to read from this one, but you freaking just need to read the actual one because it's a lot better. But for illustrating educational junk, and because we're not dissecting poetry at this moment, and instead trying to be educational, we're going to go with this version that is sort of kind of like translated from the Middle English. So our knight guy, he is the Knight Red Cross from the first epic within the epics that is the Fairy Queen. Red Cross and his story is an archetype of holiness, integrity, and character. And the beginning of his story, he is a foolish green little boy knight. He's a knight, he's got a sword, he can use it, but he's still, he's really brash. He's like, yeah, I'm the man. I'm gonna do it all. Kind of like a shonen character. And then at the end, it turns out that he's basically St. George. Notice. See that? I just really like this illustration because it shows that the good guys can have badass black armor. If I could wear that armor every day of my life, I would just wear that armor every day of my life. It turns out that Red Cross and St. George are the same person. He turns into St. George, and the end of the story is his battle and slaying of the dragon. I'm not going to read this whole thing because it's really freaking long. Actually, I have a great idea. We'll describe the battle of the Knight of Red Cross and the dragon inside of Epic of Dreams combat. Positioning phase 1. Red Cross is charging on his horse, and he wins the haste check, even though the dragon sees him because his armor's all gleaming and stuff, and it flies out to try and mess him up. The first exchange. Red Cross strikes the dragon with his lance, but fails his circle check, and the dragon sort of glides sideways. And then the dragon just swings at him with his tail a little bit. Dire freaking blow. So much damage is dealt. Red Cross and his knight fail their falter check and become prone. Really bad news bears, because now they're disadvantaged. Positioning phase 2. Red Cross gets up, resumes the charge. I think he's still disadvantaged in this part. He strikes the dragon with his lance again, and it goes up against his scales. And because of the dragon's natural armor, it buffs most of the damage. It doesn't deal any meat damage, but it says that it takes the dragon off. So, vigor damage dealt. Reaction, dragon takes to the sky. The dragon peregrine falcons down into Red Cross and his horse, trying to sweep him up into the air. Exchange number 3. Seeing this, Red Cross freaking throws his lance at the dragon. It says that he hurled it with a strength of 3 men. You know what that means, folks. He boosted that attack, you know what I'm saying? Double that damage. And this time, it actually freaking hurt. Catches the dragon in the wing, deals damage. Yowzers. Dragon falls to the ground. Dragon's action. He now breathes fire. Watch what happens. Because Red Cross is still disadvantaged, the dragon takes a reaction attack. in addition to breathing fire, he slaps them with his tail again. And they fail the fall check. They fall down. And that fire we talked about earlier cooks him. Dragon just freaking cooks him. Fails his falter check, loses his action. That's how bad it was. He's not long for this world, folks. Dragon takes another action. He's basically immobilized, so doesn't even need a circle check. And then the dragon deals a lethal blow. Red Cross Knight dies, but he ends up falling into a holy stream of water, the Well of Life. His body falls into the Well of Life, and he's brought back to life by Una, his soon-to-be wife. And then Red Cross rises from the grave. He is resurrected, literally. Guess what? It's not an instantaneous thing, because this isn't a freaking anime. Una has to pray all night long, and she waits and she prays and she cries because she wants her guy to get the dragon and do the thing and be the man. And he's dead. And it takes all night. And then the ceremony's complete. The holy water brings him back to life. And then they do that all over again. They fight for a whole other day. He wounds the dragon. Then the dragon kills him again. Another day passes. Fights the dragon. He wounds it on the paw this time. And then the dragon kills him again. And then on the third day, Red Cross beats the dragon. And I'm going to actually read this part. At sunrise once again, the knight rose restored, healed of all his wounds, ready again for battle. The dragon held back a moment, as if for the first time feeling dismay and fear. Then it charged with all its monstrous ferocity, flame storming from its mouth, jaws fanged stretching wide as if to swallow the knight whole. But the knight did not flinch in the face of this monster's rush, and upwards into the cavern of those terrible jaws he thrust his sword with all his power, piercing fatally deep. You did it, my man. Good job, Red Cross. So in that story, it's a bit different from the wizard story. We find that the only way that Red Cross was able to defeat this knight was by directly and indirectly being empowered by divine strength. Literally paladin fare. Where do you think paladins came from, my man? There's a reason why in D&D paladins can't, fall and they lose their stuff. Because if Red Cross fell from grace, then, he probably wouldn't get resurrected 2 times to defeat this one dragon. The one biggest takeaway that I love out of that passage is that in spite of all of the divine intervention that happens, the dragon is still this force to be reckoned with. And Red Cross is hanging on by a thread the whole time. For our final example, we will now learn about the king who killed the dragon, Beowulf. How did Beowulf kill his dragon? Well, my friends, it was through the powers of leadership, sacrifice, and fatherhood. Beowulf. Soliloquy. Beowulf saw the dragon coming, and he decided to take it on himself. He knew that somebody was going to die because he knew that dragons were exceedingly dangerous. He decided that instead of letting one of the men die whom he was raising up to be a valiant hero, men of honor to defend his homeland, that he would take the fall himself, being a king, being a leader, being a father. What I want to speak to is the joy of mortal risk, of wrestling with the philosophical and real idea and notion that you as a hero are going to die and you're still going to make the decision. How badass is that? Beowulf. Soliloquy. We're gonna do it. Men in armor, your mail shirts protect you. Await on the barrow the one of us two who shall be better able to bear his wounds after this onslaught. This affair is not for you, nor is it measured to any man but myself alone. To match strength with this monstrous being, attempt this deed. By daring will I will win this gold. War otherwise shall take your king, terrible life's bane. The strong champion stood up beside his shield, brave beneath helmet. He bore his mail shirt to the rocky cliff's foot, confident in his strength, a single man. Such is not the coward's way. Then did the survivor of a score of conflicts, the battle clashes of encountering armies, excelling in manhood, see in the wall a stone archway, and out of the barrel broke a stream surging through it, a stream of fire. With waves of deadly flame, the dragon's breath meant he could not venture into the vault near the horde for any time at all without being burnt. Passion filled the prince of the Geats. He allowed a cry to utter from his breast, roared from his stout heart. As the horn clear in battle, his voice re-echoed through the vault of grey stone. The horde guard recognized a human voice, and there was no more time for talk of friendship. Hatred stirred. Straight away, the breath of the dragon billowed from the rock. In a hissing gust, the ground boomed. He swung up his shield, overshadowed by the mound. The lord of the Geats against his grisly stranger. The temper of the twisted, tangled thing was fired, to close now in battle. The brave warrior king shook out his sword so sharp of edge, an ancient heirloom. Each of the pair, intending destruction, felt terror at the other. Intransigent beside his towering shield, the Lord of Friends, while the fleetness of the serpent wound itself together, he waited in his armor. It came flowing forward, flaming and coiling, rushing on its fate. Beowulf died in that battle. He died, but he also won. That day, Beowulf won for his country so many things. So much ancient gold and treasure was given back to his people. He quelled the threat that was on his horizon that would take away the young men that he was raising up to replace him already. And because of this fight, those young men were able to step into his footsteps fully. They were able to step into their potential and grow as kings, as warriors, as heroes. For this reason, we delve into dungeons and try, with all our humane hubris, to fight the dragon. The muse be with you always. Good night.